Well, at first it made us awful mad over here because of what we're going through over here, and said it made us so mad we don't know what to do, but said now we just ignore it because we know what we have to do over here, you know. And they saw a reason for our being over there.
For more than 50 years, Dale Evans stood beside America's most beloved cowboy, smiling, singing, and preaching faith. But near the end of her life, that calm surface finally cracked because of one powerful actor. He mocked her, diminished her, and turned her deepest beliefs into a public joke. So who was bold enough to treat a legend as if she didn't matter at all? Stay with us as we uncover the name of this actor, and you'll be shocked by what Dale Evans was forced to endure. Number 1. Roy Rogers, the beloved husband who silenced her at home. The world adored Roy Rogers. That was exactly the problem. To millions of Americans, Roy Rogers was kindness on horseback. Calm, gentle, moral. The man children trusted instinctively. But inside the home, Dale Evans lived with a very different version of him, one the public was never meant to see. Roy ruled his household with rigid discipline. His word was final. Decisions about parenting, faith, and daily life were not discussions. They were directives. Dale later admitted that many times she felt like a guest in her own family, expected to comply quietly to preserve the image America loved. One moment stayed with her for decades. During a disagreement about how one of their adopted children should be punished, Roy shut her down, firmly, publicly, and without hesitation, in front of the children. His authority was absolute. Dale fell silent, not because she agreed, but because she knew resistance would fracture the family myth. Years later, she finally said it out loud. Roy was gentle to the world. At home, gentleness was not always what ruled. That sentence wasn't bitterness. It was release. The resentment didn't come from cruelty. It came from control, from emotional distance, from being expected to endure grief, especially after the deaths of their daughters Robin and Debbie, without demanding emotional presence in return. Roy coped by tightening structure. Dale needed vulnerability. They never met in the middle. She never left him. She never publicly criticized him while he was alive. But privately, the resentment hardened into something permanent. By the time Roy died in 1998, it was too late for confrontation, too late for repair. Dale Evans didn't hate Roy Rogers in anger. She hated him in silence. And that silence cost her decades of her emotional life. Number 2. John Wayne, the star who mocked her faith in public. If you asked people back then who the biggest man in Hollywood was, the answer came out instantly. John Wayne. And that's exactly why Dale Evans hated him more than she ever admitted. He used that power to humiliate her in front of people who already doubted her place in the room. John Wayne liked rooms where he dominated the air. Loud voice, whiskey glass in hand, jokes that landed fast. Dale Evans walked into those rooms as the opposite of him. Calm, reserved. She didn't try to impress anyone. And to Wayne, that was irritating. One night in the late 1940s, at a studio gathering packed with executives, actors, and producers, Dale did something small. She declined a drink. Then she quietly stepped away from a conversation that had turned crude. Wayne noticed, and he didn't let it pass. He lifted his glass and said it loud enough for the room to lean in. God doesn't make movies, men do. People laughed. Wayne enjoyed that moment. He always did. The laugh confirmed what he believed, that the room belonged to him. Dale stood there for a second. She didn't smile. She picked up her purse and walked out. That exit mattered more than any argument, because everyone in that room knew exactly what had just happened. Wayne hadn't cracked a joke. He had drawn a line, and he made sure Dale was standing on the weaker side of it. Later, Dale said, "I don't mind disagreement. I mind being turned into a spectacle." That was the wound. Wayne performed his disrespect for them, and he did it knowing she wouldn't clap back without being labeled preachy or fragile. After that night, Dale avoided him whenever she could. She declined joint appearances. She refused casual invitations where Wayne was present. When asked why, she kept it simple. "I don't share rooms with men who mock what keeps people standing." Wayne never apologized. He didn't see a reason to. For Dale Evans, that moment never faded, because Wayne laughed at her faith, and that kind of insult settles in her mind. Number 3. Clark Gable, the icon who made her disappear without saying a word. The third man Dale Evans hated the most was someone the industry still calls untouchable: Clark Gable. He was the kind of man who could make a person vanish while standing right in front of him. Of course, Dale hated that. From the first days they shared a set, Dale sensed the imbalance. Gable never greeted her, never acknowledged her presence unless a camera forced him to. When scenes were blocked, he leaned toward the director, speaking in low tones, positioning himself so Dale was literally pushed to the edge of the frame. Crew members noticed. Nobody intervened. Gable had habits everyone understood. Rehearsals became optional when the scene didn't center him. Call times shifted when women carried emotional weight. Adjustments happened quietly. Someone else always paid the price. During a scene they shared, cameras rolled smoothly. The dialogue flowed. Then, without warning, Gable stopped mid-moment. He checked his sleeve, glanced toward the lights, and walked off set. No explanation, no acknowledgement. The room froze. Nobody followed him. Nobody asked questions. After several tense minutes, an assistant director approached Dale. His voice stayed low. They would reset the scene. The rewrite removed Gable's presence entirely. The focus shifted. The camera stayed with her. That was the message. Later, Dale learned this wasn't rare behavior. Gable's reputation protected him. If a scene didn't elevate him, it changed. Women adjusted their expectations. Careers survived by staying quiet. Years later, she explained the resentment in a single line to a close friend. "He didn't insult me. He made me irrelevant." She understood confrontation would end her career. Silence preserved it. That choice haunted her. To Dale Evans, Clark Gable became proof that Hollywood didn't silence women with words. It erased them with indifference. And that kind of hatred lasts longer than anger ever could. Number 4. Gene Autry, the rival who smiled while quietly blocking her career. When people talk about the men Dale Evans despised, they often miss the one who hurt her fourth: Gene Autry. He chose silence, timing, and doors that quietly closed when she wasn't looking. That subtlety made him more unsettling than the ones who attacked her openly. Long before, Gene Autry was the cowboy who feared losing ground. And when Dale Evans began rising beside Roy as the Queen of the West, Autry didn't see a fellow performer. He saw a crack in his own empire. The hostility started quietly. Dale noticed changes before she heard explanations. Scripts stopped coming. Invitations softened, then disappeared. A radio appearance was suddenly rescheduled. None of it looked accidental, but none of it came with fingerprints either. Behind studio doors, Autry played the long game. He leaned on producers who owed him favors. He nudged network executives toward safer programming. He pushed schedules so Roy and Dale's show aired opposite stronger competition. The goal stayed simple: keep her visibility controlled, keep her influence capped. One producer finally said the quiet part out loud: "Gene doesn't want you getting too big." That sentence landed harder than any insult ever could. Dale understood immediately what was happening. Autry wasn't fighting Roy directly. He was targeting the woman audiences were beginning to love just as much. If Dale weakened, Roy's image softened. And that served Autry perfectly. What infuriated her most was the performance. Autry smiled at events. He shook hands. He praised healthy competition in interviews. Then he went back to making calls that narrowed her opportunities behind the scenes. Dale never confronted him. Instead, she adjusted her own strategy. She declined joint appearances. Years later, she explained her resentment plainly. Open enemies don't frighten me. Quiet ones do. Gene Autry never admitted what he did, but Dale never forgot the lesson he taught her. In Hollywood, the most ruthless attacks arrive wrapped in polite smiles. Number 5. Bob Hope, the comedian who turned her pain into a punchline. By the time you reach the fifth person Dale Evans despised the most, the story takes an unexpected turn. This wasn't a cowboy, not a rival. It was the man America trusted to make everything feel lighter. Bob Hope. Dale didn't fear him. She didn't compete with him. She didn't even dislike his comedy at first. What she hated was the moment he decided her pain belonged to his punchlines. It happened during a televised appearance when Hope leaned into one of his familiar bits. He joked about the holy cowgirl, a woman so clean and faithful that she looked manufactured. The implication landed clearly. Dale's beliefs weren't real. They were wardrobe, studio polish, a costume like fringe on a jacket. The audience laughed on cue. But Dale sat still. She didn't smile politely. She didn't play along. She looked down, hands folded, waiting for the segment to end. Later that night, someone from the production staff suggested Hope hadn't meant harm. Dale disagreed quietly. He knew exactly what he was doing, she said. He knew it would land. What made it worse came later. Hope repeated the joke at another event, slightly sharper this time, milking the laugh longer. That repetition told her everything she needed to know. The joke wasn't accidental. It was profitable. For Dale, faith wasn't image management. It carried her through the deaths of Robin and Debbie. It steadied her through long absences, loneliness, and grief that never fully lifted. Hearing it turned into comedy felt like a public stripping of meaning. She didn't confront him. She didn't demand an apology. She didn't issue statements. She did something far colder. She just disappeared. Invitations involving Hope went unanswered. Joint appearances became impossible. When asked privately, she kept her response brief. I don't laugh at people's lifelines. In the other side, Bob Hope never apologized. He never acknowledged the damage, and Dale always knew it. Dale Evans didn't rage. She endured. But endurance leaves scars. Which of these men do you think hurt her the most? And why do you think she waited so long to speak? Leave your thoughts below and subscribe for more stories about the truths Hollywood legends were never allowed to